We are live. Welcome to Tech Bros Show. I think this is episode 5. Got a couple of guests lined up. We're going to get to soon. One's having technical issues, so 1 or 2 guests we don't know yet. But hey, Lauren, how was your week?
I'm very excited. It's been a fun week in tech. I'm giving myself the self-congratulatory bro pat here. Every couple of years, there's a guy, Matt Turk. He's managing director over at First Mark, venture capital firm. He puts out the modern landscape of machine learning, AI data. So have you seen these before? Or if you haven't, if you haven't seen them, I think you've probably seen it if you work in or around data. Big companies, small companies, whatever. This massive landscape slide of everybody in the data world broken down by, who's doing this in machine learning, who's doing this in AI, who's in this category, who's in that category. And it's become like a tongue-in-cheek kind of funny joke, I guess, is you got to zoom in more and more every year because it gets bigger and bigger. Like it probably started out with in the dozens of companies 10 years ago. And now it's, in the hundreds. And people are doing, smaller and smaller point solution things. And there's all kinds of new AI stuff around. My firm, Upgrade Analytics, the firm that I own, that I run, we were included in the leaders in the category of consulting, data and AI consulting. So very excited.
Which makes you, Lauren, I know you started by congratulating yourself, but let's go ahead and make you the Tech Bro of the Week.
Oh, Matt's the Tech Bro. Matt's the Tech Bro of the Week.
With a trophy and a gold pin or whatever. Somebody please send Lauren a sticker.
I may buy, I should buy myself an obnoxiously large trophy and just bring it to like conferences and stuff. And just walk around with it. That's essentially what everyone's doing there anyways. It's just metaphorical trophies patting themselves off the back. So why not? I just make a gigantic, bowling trophy or something, put my name on there, and we'll do it. But no, Matt's definitely the Tech Bro of the Week, and his folks over there who make this and put it out every couple years.
Gotcha. All right, we can link to his stuff. Most people know it already, so that's awesome. Congratulations. And it's part of the modern data stack discussions.
It's part of the hoopla.
Part of the hoopla. Hopefully, do they have a category for media shows on tech and data?
No, we gotta have the best podcasts though, and I think Matt's here in New York. I'll see him around at some point. I'll slide him a 20 or something, and we can get on the list for next year for data AI podcasts.
We need to get to the top of that list for next year. So awesome. Love it. Let's go into our topic today. It's one that you and I have wanted to talk about for a while, Lauren. And it's this, the title's there for anyone watching who tuned in probably specifically for this, the intersection of tech and porn. Not to do too extreme of a pivot there from talking about Matt Turk's list. But the reason I want to talk about it is this kind of the intersection between tech, what you and I work in every day, tech and data, and porn is kind of largely unacknowledged among people we work in. And if anything, one of the few direct references to it is in HBO's Silicon Valley show, in which there's a startup trying to get funding.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those moments where they're desperate for funding, they're like, we're going to have to go to the porn client, right? And
they got to go to the porn client because the porn client had all the money. And that's when they, had their biggest customer ever. They had some small users to that point. They had users, right? They had people using their platform, but they didn't have a big customer yet. So this was the first, big boy customer that they landed. And of course, because it's a TV show, they screwed it up immensely. So, but yeah, I think, with technology and pornography, the world's oldest profession is prostitution. The world's second oldest profession is, people probably trying to make money off the prostitution. And it's really interesting. We've seen the rise of just numerous adult material platforms last couple of years, live streaming, camming, things like that. I'm very interested in this. I don't know a lot about the underpinnings of this space, the ethics of it, how people are paid in it, like how the economics work around it. So I'm very interested to learn more, and I'm excited to speak to our guests today.
Yeah, we'll bring them on in just a minute. And I feel like this is the type of topic where we don't have to kind of give any background or numbers to say that clearly online porn and entertainment is a massive industry, like hundreds of billions of dollars every year. We know that. We know that some of the most visited sites on the internet anywhere in the world are porn and adult entertainment sites. One of the things I didn't even think about till you pointed this out, even, the platforms like Twitter and Reddit, those are like teeming with porn and adult entertainment. It's everywhere. It's always a Google search.
Reddit is one of the largest pornographic websites in the world. If you look at it's not what the purpose of Reddit is, but there's so much content on there that does fall into that category, that there's more on there than I, believe that there are based on, numbers I've looked into on a lot of like actual adult sites and things like that.
Yeah. And a lot of what we're saying, what we'll say is almost like obvious stuff. Our guests will bring a lot more subtlety and nuance to this, and when we bring them on in just a few minutes. But this is kind of one of the issues, I'll say, that's like what I found in my many years as a journalist is like the things that are the good stories that are worth talking about are like things that kind of everybody knows. Like if you stop and think about it, we all know that the porn is everywhere out there, on Reddit, on Twitter, on Google. If you stop and think just a little bit further, well, that's major tech, sophisticated platforms propping that up. But in the tech world, you and I work in the tech world, we don't really stop and talk about that, or stop and talk about like who's working there and what areas of expertise are they. I'm curious if like people who work at say the website that powers PornHub, do they make the same as people that work at Google and Facebook, those like elite tech categories, assuming the demographics are mostly white male? I don't know. But one thing, since we're streaming in addition to YouTube and Twitter right now, we're streaming on LinkedIn. One thing that I think is worth pointing out that's interesting is the biggest porn and adult entertainment platforms are actually right here on LinkedIn. There's one called MindGeek. I think it has about 1,300 employees based in Montreal. That's actually PornHub. And here on LinkedIn, they call themselves, they don't say like MindGeek, like we power PornHub. They bill themselves as a tech company. If tech is your thing, we've got your stack. So it's interesting to me that on a platform like LinkedIn, you can have PornHub, masquerading as a tech company. But as far as I can tell, you can't actually type the word porn on LinkedIn, because in order to post this show, I had to censor the word porn. Another company, Multi Media LLC, they call themselves the tech company next door. They are the platform that power Chaturbate, which is one of the biggest, I think the biggest live camming platforms. So it just gets at this idea that these companies are out there very much part of our professional world as tech workers, but kind of obfuscating their identities.
Yeah, it's interesting, and there's a lot of reasons for it. I bet do employees want people to know they work there, or is it a quote unquote scandalous? If you're interacting with that brand, do you really know who they actually are? Things like that. So it's really interesting. Really, a lot of things here to cover. We've got a couple of guests here that I want to bring them on and, get into like what their experience is and how they think about things. And I'm excited.
Yeah, hi. Our other guest is having technical issues. Actually, it looks like she's here. Okay, we're going to bring Kathleen on. All right, so let me introduce them, and then you can.
Hello.
Hi. So, and Antonia Hernandez, who's in Montreal, postdoc at McGill University, and Kathleen Richardson, who teaches at De Montfort University in Leicester, but you are based in Nottingham. Kathleen, why don't you both introduce yourselves and tell us about your work, obviously in terms of how it relates to what you're discussing. And thank you both for being here.
Kathleen?
Yeah, Kathleen, go ahead.
Kathleen may be frozen. She's been having technical issues.
Do you want to go first, Antonia?
Okay, I can start. Well, first, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've had some.
Oh, we're not hearing you, Kathleen. So let's have Antonia go, and then we'll listen to Kathleen in a minute.
Well, thank you so much for having me here, and thank you for the invitation. This is very exciting. And I am currently in Montreal, where you correctly identified that MindGeek is as well. And I am doing a postdoc at McGill University, and I am artist and researcher working along these lines, and particularly, as you were saying, for a long time about porn and technology. So I'm very happy about having this conversation.
Terrific, welcome. We'll listen now to see Kathleen if we can hear her. If not, that's the reality of tech, right? Sometimes these platforms work and sometimes they don't. Did you want to try, Kathleen?
Yeah, I really want to participate in this conversation, but can you hear me now?
No, I think
so. I'm going to say I want to participate, but I think the sound is too poor.
Okay.
That I might have to drop out. I'm really sorry.
No problem, Kathleen.
I can't hear you very well, and I'm not being heard. So
no problem.
Maybe we should resume. Maybe we should do a separate thing, a pre-recorded, and add it later. Maybe I could send some remarks.
Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna drop Kathleen. Again, the beauty of live streaming. Sometimes these things happen. Kathleen has written extensively, just for people who are watching, about the intersection between technology and human sexuality. Once she's in a place with better Wi-Fi, we'll get her back on and do another show on that. So instead, we'll speak only to Antonia, which is great. You have written and both done art about specifically the live camming part of this industry.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with that. What got you interested in?
Well, first I would love to say that I'm very sorry that Kathleen cannot participate, because I think the conversation was going to be very interesting. In relation to camming, I have been fascinated with camming since its inception. I am old enough to remember the Jenny Cam, and I have been following all of that. So before Chaturbate, I was very interested in chat roulette. I don't know if you guys remember. That was like a video roulette with where people can connect randomly with other streamers, which was kind of it collapsed with the amount of people masturbating, and it was really beside the idea of this small company. So it was more or less the end of that. But very soon after, it appeared Chaturbate, which has it was similar in appearance, that you have people coming from what it looks like their domestic environment, but the business model was totally different, and it was like a commercial site, but in a way disguised as an amateur one, and that combination is super interesting. I don't know, you want to say?
So
I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm familiar with. I didn't know the chat roulette had shut down or whatever. But yes, it's interesting that you mentioned the difference in commercial models and how that, leads to the, how platforms develop. Right now with like a Chaturbate or something, or a live camming service, like a lot of the ones that seem to be successful are ones that do in fact, have, it's not just random people talking. There is, a cash element being transacted on the platform, and they're run, just as any other business that's, transacting money operates. And I think several times you said, what you're seeing now in the last couple of years is interesting. I wanted to pick into that, like what's become interesting about this, now that this business model, and the quality of streaming getting better, videos getting better, higher quality in the last couple of years. Like, what does that all mean, and how has that played out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for the question. I think at this stage, I have been observing Chaturbate from the last 10 years, I would say, at this point, or maybe even a bit more. And I don't think we can. I think we have been experiencing like several generations of what constitute, for example, the idea of authenticity, or the idea of the amateur as a value in this type of camps. So a very important factor, in particular regarding Chaturbate, a difference of other light camming platforms, is the fact that they announce themselves as a free platform, which not only help disguising the nature of the business, because it's never announced as a commercial site, but a place where people can express themselves. If you read the term and conditions, it's all about freedom of expression and people like showing their sexuality, but there's no mention of this being a commercial site. Which is interesting for two things. One is these things about the hypocrisy of the thing, but and trying to avoid legalities, but also it helps to the platform installing abusive practices toward the performers. I don't know if you are aware that, for example, the fee that Chaturbate takes from the performers is 50%.
It's 50%?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's super interesting, because if something would happen with like Uber like that, or another type of platform that we can characterize in a similar field, it will be a scandal. But because it's this place where you're not actually working, but like expressing yourself, so nobody mentioned the word work, because has a lot of associations and very like patriarchal association, etc. So people pretend that nobody's working the platform as well, but that is the way that they can take this gigantic fee.
That's really interesting. 50% take rate is very high. And I wonder if other competitors of Chaturbate are charging that as well, if that's like what the industry is for this right now, or is, if they're the number one player and they control 50% of the market, or a plurality of the market, that's what's leading to that high take rate there. So the economics around that are pretty interesting. I didn't realize it was that high.
And go ahead, yeah.
No, tell me.
Well, you pointed to the hypocrisy of them calling it a paid platform, and also not calling what these performers are doing work or labor, far from actually any world where we talk about work or labor protections for these people, just like a basic consideration that my understanding of live camming platforms like Chaturbate is that many of the performers on there are, correct me if I'm wrong, you've done more research than I have, are mostly women, many of them living in profound financial precarity that drive them to do this work. Again, not everyone who does anything related to sex work is in that situation, but my understanding of the live camming platforms is that's the type of demographic we're talking about. Is that your understanding, Antonia?
I think it's very difficult to make right. Well, to make assumptions is very easy, but to make like having like well-informed demographics about the people that work, I think is almost impossible. You rely on you don't have that information from the company, and you rely on people that are willing to participate, which is already a cap of like some kind of access to, I don't know, language technology, free time to answer questions, willingness to do so. So I think we don't know those demographics, and I will be careful assuming that in terms of the majority are women. That is something that it was clear for my research. And what is for me most interesting is it is clear that the platform is designed with men as the client. Either if you have, because in the platform you have different genders, and but you can tell from the advertisement that accompany like each gender that the customer is thought to be a man, and that's very clear about and that's very telling about how the platform is designing their business. So for example, this thing about not saying that people are performing a work or deserve a compensation, and even in Chaturbate you can watch without paying because it's still part of the business. It's also part of the allure where a woman or a person performing for a male customer is not really working, right? Especially if they're in their domestic environment and things like that. So that's very telling of how the company design its business. And also you have there's also answering your question, Lauren, that about the I think you were asking a bit about the professionalization, right, of camming in the last years, and that's something that if 10 years ago the amateur quality was something inciting, right now is no longer the case. You have HD cameras, you have people with like professional settings, and for example, things that looks like a minor things, but HD cameras are privileged in the platform. So you have a small icon, or you used to have a small icon saying this camera, this room has an HD camera, for example. So already you have a lot of constraints about what type of people can be hugely successful in this platform. And that also is related, for example, to studios. There's a lot of studios in countries like in East Europe or in Latin America, where people and if Chaturbate takes half of the money, the studio take a half of that half. So it's big.
Sure.
But at the same time, for some people, is the option to compete in terms of bandwidth, in terms of camera, in terms of having the privacy of having a room with like isolation, or so this is it's very complex, and it's hard to yes, like
Yeah. No, it's super interesting because even outside of this world, like marketplace businesses in general, like DoorDash. Like DoorDash is actually like if you consider that it's a marketplace business, and a lot of these streaming platforms are live camming platforms are like marketplaces as well. Very similar business models, and you see the same types of things here with like ghost kitchens, where it's not really a restaurant, they're just serving the platform. You see the economics of this play out, and what you described of a studio basically renting out their space and a performer going on the studio taking a cut, then the platform taking a cut. Very interesting to see this dynamic play out, and how you know uh, the margin plays out for the actual performer, and then HD pricing, things like that. Super interesting.
Well, and when
Go
you
ahead,
just
Mary.
to take that a little bit deeper, it's one thing when you're talking ghost kitchens or DoorDash, but when you're talking, studios and then managers of, performers, when it's something like live camming, which is, if not sex work, is certainly very tangential to sex work. At what point does this become pimping? At what point, who is responsible for regulation of, are these performers underage? Are these performers, intoxicated or being plied with drugs and alcohol? And I'm not just, making this up and speculating. Rolling Stone did a great piece on this, I think about a year ago. I can post it in the comments, looking at these creator studios for live camming, where these are profound issues, and without being puritanical about any of it, like these are human rights issues. If you're putting 16-year-olds on screen live camming, or if you're plying them with drugs and alcohol to entice them to do this, and the platform's taking a cut, and whoever is managing this is taking a cut. I mean, it's really complex ethically.
I guess where's the, for there any regulation that exists, like where does that, does the studio bear responsibility? Does the platform bear responsibility? Like how does that all work? And I just don't know, because I haven't looked that closely into this. So yeah, genuinely curious how that plays out.
I'm familiar with Chaturbate. I'm less familiar with other platforms, but from what I observed, they're very strict. I'm not gonna immolate in the name of Chaturbate and the moderation techniques, but from what I learned, I heard like more complaints from performers saying that they were banned without a good reason, or things like that, and having a hard time restoring their accounts and things like that. So there's an important moderation thing that happened on the side of Chaturbate, and you have to even myself performing in this very silly thing as with miniatures and stuff. I had to show like driver's license and show that I'm like have enough age.
Tell us about that, Antonia. Tell us. So you went on, you brought your art onto Chaturbate. It's fascinating to me. So it sort of is a way of exploring the platform. Tell us what you did.
Well, that was my way to explore the platform from within, even if in a very particular way, and I cannot claim that having another experience than mine in this very particular setting. But what I did was I translate I play around with this idea of domesticity in the camming side, and for example, in Chaturbate, channels are called rooms, and everything is kind of plays around with the domestic, and even like pretending that this is your domestic space, even if it's a studio. So there's a lot of things that uh, are gained from the idea of that you're like in your personal space. So what I did was to translate this space to a room, to a miniature room where a performer was someone that was doing performance. So I kind of like translate literally, because for me that kind of things are funny in a weird way. I love translating things like literally, uh,
So you
because they
you you put the sort of open the room on Chaturbate, but showing not your personal room, but a camera on your dollhouse. Is that right?
exactly, yeah.
And,
So
and then by performing, how did you perform in there?
yeah. So I was performing. I had this miniature room, 1 to 12 in a scale, and I had a furniture and things like that. So I was doing performance, not like pretending that the hands were people, but like that I was there, but you can only see my hands.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing some shows that were clearly very silly, because we were talking about miniature stuff in a sex cam room with live audience. So people were saying like, "What is this?" And but I was also trying to entertain an audience and keep the audience and engage with them, and doing things that were silly but also a bit sexy on the silly side for sure, kind of like doing a chair dance on a miniature chair, and things like that. Uh,
And what were
That's
the
hysterical. That's interesting. I love that. Was this available anywhere else on YouTube or
yeah, yeah,
anything?
yeah. I can leave the well
posts?
in my site, but I can leave the link for that.
It's very funny and it's beautiful. Like anything with that miniaturization, with dollhouses is there's a powerful mix of fantasy and reality, which is getting the mix of fantasy and reality in a very different way than one would expect on Chaturbate. Really, really interesting, profound work you're doing, Antonia. And the people who did they just stumble into your room? What were the reactions of people there?
Everyone was curious, because yeah, it's not something that you expect for happening in this camp. So, and that's why I was calling that a performative intervention, because I was doing an intervention in the platform, and I was trying to disrupt the things that looks like taken for granted. So, for example, I was cleaning, I was like doing kind of like maintenance stuff, things that even if are domestic, they're never featured as spectacular, like doing boring stuff. I At the beginning I thought I was going to just perform very boring stuff like cleaning, but very like quickly I understood that it was not enough for the audience, and also I was in this platform where the main things were sexy stuff, so I had to play along if I want to understand something from the platform. So that's where I start like mixing more erotic things in this silly way, but still like playing along with the important tropes of the camera. Yeah.
Right, right. I want to get at one other aspect of Chaturbate, which it feels like we're talking a lot about this one platform, but it's the one that you've explored
Mhm.
so much, so it makes sense. And again, they make a lot of money. They're powerful. Uh, what we're sort of talking about the tech behind these platforms. We think of it as the sort of incredible IT and data infrastructure that allows people all over the world to open their cam rooms, and then the people who want to watch to tune in. Like that takes really sophisticated tech. But the tech takes on all different forms too. And one that I learned about on Chaturbate is that, again, correct me if I have the details wrong here, live cameras can purchase Bluetooth powered vibrators that they, can, I don't know the physical details, connect or use or whatever, connect to their bodies, use on their bodies, that are activated by the viewers. If they tip, that, which is like a whole other level of tech human interaction that to me is like mind blowing that this is happening. It's simple technology.
Isn't that called Teledildonics or something?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Right. No. I think it is. It's
Yeah.
called.
Yeah.
It's been around a long time, but to me, it's like there's so many levels to this.
Yeah, at early in my studies, I decided that if you're in the path of the teledildonics, you're in the right path, because I never really pursued that much as much as I could as I would, but it's so fascinating, and it's so fascinating in so many levels, because yes, you are right. These are devices that are, it's the tech chain for that is less straightforward that as that it seems to be. You have to have an app connected to another app, to another browser, to these Bluetooth things, etc. But in the simplest form, the idea is that the vibration it reacts to the stimuli at the amount of money that you're receiving. So you have, like, if I receive this amount of money, this is going to vibrate for this long, but if I receive this amount of money, it's going to vibrate by this other time frame. And also some performers go very far and they publish the pattern of the vibration. If the vibration is going to be kind of like a square, if it's going to be like this, which is for me just like, sorry,
No, go ahead.
it just like fulfill a very geek fantasy, because can you really tell if the vibration is a square or if it's like this? And we are talking about vaginas, right? So this is not the, I don't think it's the place in your body where you can most understand these subtleties about the
Not
Yeah.
everything.
I have an extensive background in data analytics and engineering and machine learning, and almost every chart's just made up. So the fact that there's a chart, wait, so I'm interested in the chart. Is the chart like used as part of the advertisement?
exactly.
Or is, okay. And I was wondering if it was like beforehand or if like afterwards it's like published like, hey, here's how you did or whatever. Because that's a totally different experience. That's really interesting. Because like in a way it's like a heart rate monitor. People wear their heart rate monitors, and then your spouse, you check, oh, how did, what was your heart rate like? What was your steps a day? That's really fascinating. That an analytics like chart is being used for marketing, for someone to put money into a machine and then vibrate somebody on the other side of the world. Fascinating, very fascinating.
Yeah, there's a researcher called Eduardo Martins, and he called that experience crowdfucking.
Right, like crowdfunding, right?
Yeah, because there is so interesting in so many levels, but one of them is there's a lot of people contributing to the common task pretended of the orgasm of the performer. So there's a whole kind of like communal experience happening through this impulse where like everyone because it's one too many, right? Like there's one person and you can have like an audience of like 10,000 people connected. So there's like kind of like a collective investment in the vibration of that particular toy. through money.
That's fascinating. Right, it's like a Kickstarter.
Yeah, and not to be a downer, but the the performer, 10,000 people watching, a vibrator activating their vagina, and the platform gets a 50% cut of this. It's not their vagina being vibrated. It's they don't have one. They're a corporation.
And there's another thing that I is so crucial for this model, and it's not the most sexy of the topics, but it's very related, and it's the way that because you don't send money. What you do is to send tokens, okay?
Mhm.
So you have to buy those tokens in advance, and you have you, the audience. So you have in your wallet, let's say, like 1,000 tokens, okay?
Mhm.
And the astonishing thing and the shocking thing, in my understanding, is you, as a member of the audience, you can use MasterCard, you can use Visa, you can use PayPal, you can use Bitcoin, etc. And let's say you buy 1,000 tokens and they cost you like $10. I don't remember exactly the number right now, but let's say that. If you, as now you are the performer, you receive the same amount of tokens, but your tokens, they're not longer cost $100, they cost not $50, okay? Because the platform took half of that. But if you want to cash those tokens, you cannot use PayPal, you cannot use Visa, you cannot use MasterCard, because all those services are not available for people that do sex work. So you have to
That's
use.
interesting. So one side of the marketplace is open for it, and one side's not. The platform captures the float of the money in there. So and what that is, if people don't know economics here, right? Like the platform, the difference between the payout, the money being received, and the payout, the company has that money and can invest it, do whatever with it, take debt out on it, whatever. So that's fascinating from an economics perspective.
So how do they get their money out, the performer?
You can use other services. There are other services that are kind of like equivalent to PayPal, obviously less well known, less reliable, with bigger cuts, with more delays, etc., etc. You have less good services, and they do exist, but they take their share. And they're less reliable. You know that even if you use PayPal often, you are aware of, like, okay, what's happening, etc., etc., right? But for performer, that's not an option.
So the most essential economics of a platform like this, as in the payments going in and out, are designed to benefit the primarily male users and to the detriment of the primarily female performers.
You can interpret it like that. It's also what the platform does is to connect two different payment ecologies, that because this situation exceeds Chaturbate, right? It's a problem that sex workers have in every, like, with payment processors on payment providers. It's a huge problem. So in the case of Chaturbate, their role as the intermediary is to connect these two payment ecologies that they don't coexist, because they're meant for different type of people. So yeah, we the thing that Chaturbate does that is less cool than connecting those things is taking advantage of the precarity of the situation and taking 50%. So
Yeah, totally fascinating, and we can wrap soon because we've taken so much of your time, and like this has been an incredible insight into someone who's done the research into these platforms, but in sort of the broader conversation in mainstream media, the only time that you do hear these discussions is talking about the payment processing. Like at various points. The credit card companies have cracked down on PornHub, and they've had to pull a lot of their videos because Visa or whoever is like, well, we can't be having our payments go towards underage performers or whatever. So there's a lot to talk about, but we maybe just scratched the surface on this broad topic of the intersection of tech and porn. I think we brought it maybe more to life than what Lauren and I are used to hearing in the industry. What do you think, Lauren?
Yeah, it's super interesting.
Yeah,
I think, this is the payments. I would love to chat more on the payments part. I mean, that's like, my background is in economics and in, everything that has to do with data analytics and everything. I run a company doing all that and work with payment processors and everything else. That's super interesting. And not only from a business opportunity perspective, but just getting the payouts, to the performers is something that's, probably a good thing. So yeah, I'm fascinated, and I'm going to research this at some point because I've learned a lot in this episode. Just on like the economics of this and who's performing and everything. So yeah, thank you very much.
no, thank you guys, and just yesterday there was let me see if I can find it. There was a very fantastic article at the QAnon review. Let me. So it's exactly an article by Lorelei Lee, Sarah Stardust, Gabriela Garcia, Daniel Blunt, and Rachel Kuo. And the name is High Risk Hustling, a payment processors, sexual proxies, and discrimination by design, which I can send the link in the chat, but this takes this issue in a broader scale, thinking about a financial discrimination towards sex worker, which is, it's a huge issue. And I will be happy to share or continue this conversation whenever you guys want. And I do have an article on this.
Yeah, and we'll the article you just mentioned, please post it in the comments, or if you just email it to me, I can do it after the show. Yeah. And then I'll post the link to your dollhouse work because, again, totally fascinating stuff. So yeah, thank you, Antonia. We'll wrap there, Lauren. Any closing words? Yeah, I think we're good. So have a great week, everyone, and have a great Tech Bro weekend. Go drink some beer or whatever Tech Bros do.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.